There are moments in life when it feels like the weight is too much. The pressure is crushing. The expectations, the disappointments, the silent battles, you're carrying it all, and it's heavy. Maybe you've said it out loud, or maybe it's just been whispered in your spirit. I can't do this anymore. But here's what I want to tell you today. God won't let you break. You may feel broken, but you are not defeated. There is a difference between being pressed and being crushed. The Apostle Paul wrote, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned." That means even when you're under pressure, God's presence is your protection. That depression you thought would take you out, it didn't. That betrayal that shattered your trust, you survived it. That loss that left a hole in your heart, you're still here, and you're not here by accident. You are here on purpose, with a purpose. God saw the breaking point before you even got close to it, and He stood in the gap. You were designed with endurance. You were crafted with resilience. The fire you're going through isn't to consume you, it's to refine. See, the enemy wants to convince you that this season is your end, but God is saying this is your beginning. What feels like a breakdown is actually a setup for your breakthrough. Some of you think you're barely hanging on, but what if I told you God is holding on to you? What if the strength that's kept you standing this long wasn't yours in the first place? That's grace. Grace is not just forgiveness, empowerment. It's God's supernatural strength in your natural struggle. God never promised that life would be painless, but He did promise that His power is made perfect in your weakness. So when you're weak, you're not losing. You're actually in position to receive more of Him. Sometimes it takes everything falling apart for you to realize He is the one holding it all together. So don't let the pain define you. Don't let the past disqualify you. Don't let fear hold you hostage. You were never meant to break. You were meant to bounce back, and you will, because the God who formed you fights for you. The same God who saw you cry yourself to sleep is the God who will wake you up with new mercy. You're not breaking. You're building. You're not dying. You're developing. You're not forgotten. You're fortified. God won't let you break. He's breaking you open for what's next. Sometimes life puts you under pressure so intense it feels like something is going to give way. You're juggling responsibility, holding back tears, trying to smile through pain, all while pretending you're fine. But beneath the surface, your soul is screaming for relief. That pressure, it's real. But here, this pressure does not mean destruction. What you're going through may be intense, but God has drawn a boundary around your breaking point. You are not being crushed. You're being compressed into purpose. The Apostle Paul said, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed." That means it's possible to feel overwhelmed without being overcome. It's possible to be surrounded by trouble and still carry peace. When the pressure closes in, God doesn't always remove it, but He always regulates it. He knows how much you can handle. And sometimes He'll allow the pressure to prove to you what He's already placed inside you. Not to destroy you, but to develop you. God's people have always been pressure tested. Moses felt pressure leading a complaining people through a dry desert. David felt pressure running from Saul with a promise in his pocket, but nothing to show for it. Jesus Himself felt the pressure in Gethsemane so heavily that He sweat drops of blood. Pressure isn't a sign that God has abandoned you. It's often the evidence that He's preparing you. He allows pressure not to punish, but to position. Pressure brings out what comfort conceals. You may not know how strong your faith is until life presses you into a situation where faith is your only option. You may not know how deeply you trust God until the job falls through, the door closes, the friend walks away, and all that remains is His presence. That's where pressure refines you. That's where the false things fall off and the real you begins to emerge. Not the you that pretends to be strong, but the one who leans into God's strength. Have you ever noticed how diamonds are made? Not in peaceful, sunny meadows, but in the dark, deep places of the earth, under unbearable pressure and intense heat. The same carbon that would crumble as coal is transformed into something precious, all because of what it endured. So when you feel the pressure rising in your life, maybe it's not a sign you're failing. Maybe it's proof that God is forming something valuable inside you. Sometimes God allows the pressure to show you what didn't break you. You thought that situation would be the end of you, but it wasn't. You thought you'd never survive that season, but you did. Every time life tried to crush you, God placed his hand between you and the enemy. He didn't stop the storm, but he kept you standing through it. He didn't take away the pressure, but he made sure it didn't destroy your purpose. And here's the truth many people miss. The pressure isn't always from the enemy. Sometimes it's God himself allowing the weight to push you into prayer, into alignment, into submission, into purpose. Because if it were always easy, you'd never grow. If you never faced resistance, you'd never develop spiritual muscle. What the enemy intends to break you, God uses to build you. You don't have to fear the pressure, because even in it, God is in control. You might feel like you're barely holding on, but the truth is you're still here. And that alone is a miracle. You've been through battles people don't even know about. You've walked through valleys with tears nobody saw. And yet you're standing. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's God sustaining you under pressure, refusing to let you be destroyed. Feeling broken doesn't mean being defeated. There is a dangerous lie many people silently believe. If I feel broken, I must be losing. But the truth is, brokenness is not the same as defeat. One is an emotion, the other is a decision. You can feel broken and still be walking in victory. You can be tired, discouraged, shattered into pieces, and still be carrying the presence of God inside of you. Your feelings do not cancel out your faith. God never promised we wouldn't feel broken. In fact, Scripture says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18 that tells me something powerful. Brokenness attracts the presence of God. When you're at your lowest, God is leaning in the closest. You may feel shattered, but you're not abandoned. You may feel crushed, but you're not cursed. God sees brokenness not as something to avoid, but as something to redeem. The world tells you to hide your broken places, to patch it up, fake a smile, and pretend everything's okay. But God says, show me your cracks, and I'll show you my grace. Your brokenness doesn't scare him. It doesn't reduce his love for you. If anything, it invites him to move in even deeper. He doesn't need perfection. He looks for surrender. And brokenness is a beautiful place to surrender. Even Jesus allowed himself to be broken. His body was broken on the cross so that you could be whole. That means brokenness is not failure, it's sacred. If God could use the brokenness of the cross to bring salvation to the world, then imagine what he can do with your broken heart, your broken dreams, your broken story. Being broken is not being defeated, it's being positioned for resurrection. The enemy wants you to confuse pain with punishment. He wants you to think, if I feel this way, something must be wrong with me. God must be disappointed in me. But that's a lie. Sometimes the most faithful people feel the most broken. Elijah called down fire from heaven, then sat under a tree wishing to die. David wrote psalms of praise and psalms of pain. Feeling broken doesn't mean your faith is gone. It means you're human. We're Randy. And in your humanity, God's strength shows up the strongest. When you feel broken, don't assume God is done with you. In fact, it might mean he's just getting started. A seed has to break open before it can grow. A potter has to crush the clay before it can be molded. A grape has to be pressed before it becomes wine. What you call broken, God calls in process. He's not discarding you, shaping you. He's not punishing you, he's preparing you. It's okay to cry, it's okay to not have it all together. It's okay to feel the weight of it all. Just don't let those feelings define your future. God is not finished with you because of your brokenness. He's working through your brokenness. Every scar tells a story, and your story isn't over yet. The same God who allowed you to be broken will be the one who rebuilds you in beauty. And when he does, when you rise from the ashes of your breakdown, you'll look back and realize, what tried to break me actually built me. What made me feel defeated became the place where I discovered a deeper kind of strength. Because in that brokenness, I found him. Just when you think you're at the end, when your hands are trembling, your heart is overwhelmed, and your soul whispers, I can't take one more thing. That's often when God steps in. He doesn't always show up early. He doesn't always take the pain away, but he always arrives in time to keep you from going over the edge. You may be standing at the cliff, but he's standing beside you, anchoring your soul so you don't fall apart. Have you ever had a moment when you felt like everything was about to collapse, and then somehow it didn't? The situation didn't change, but you did. You suddenly had strength you didn't expect, peace that made no sense, a breath of hope when all you could see was despair. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's the hand of God intervening, catching you when you didn't even know you were falling. God sees things we don't. He sees the emotional toll, the mental fatigue, the spiritual battles happening inside us. While we're focused on surviving the moment, He's already preparing the miracle. And here's the beauty of God's grace. It doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It meets you right in the middle of your panic, your weakness, your fear. Even if you don't call out loud, your pain still reaches Him. The psalmist said, "He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber." Psalm 121:3. That means God isn't surprised by your breaking points. He doesn't get distracted. He never misses a moment. When you're gasping for breath in a battle no one else sees, He's watching. And not just watching, He's working, making sure that what comes against you will not overwhelm you. Sometimes you don't even realize how close you were to breaking until the storm passes. You look back and think, how did I get through that? And the answer isn't always found in your strength. It's found in God's rescue. He protected your mind when anxiety tried to consume it. He guarded your heart when grief tried to harden it. He spoke calm into your chaos when you couldn't even pray words. This is the God who sends the right word at the right time. A text message when you needed a sign. A sermon that hit too close to your situation to be random. A worship song that played at just the right moment. A stranger's encouragement when you felt unseen. You thought it was small, but it was strategic. Because God will use whatever it takes to let you know you're not alone and you're not going to break. Even in your darkest hour, God places limits on what the enemy can do. The enemy wanted to destroy Job completely. But God said, you can go this far, but no further. That same protection covers you. The breaking point you fear is not your future. God already built a boundary around it. And when the pain starts pressing in, it's not the signal that you're finished. It's often the sign that God is about to show up in power. You may be tired. You may be drained. You may feel like you're hanging by a thread. But that thread is held by the hand of a faithful God. He's not watching you fall. He's holding you up. And just when you think you've hit your limit, grace arrives like a flood, and suddenly you realize God has been stepping in long before you even knew you were close to breaking. Your pain has a purpose. Pain is one of the most confusing parts of the human experience. We don't like it. We try to numb it, escape it, or pretend it's not there. But what if I told you your pain isn't pointless? What if the very thing you wish God would remove is the very thing He's using to reveal something greater inside of you? God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't play games with your tears. If He allowed it, there's a reason, even if you can't see it yet. There is purpose in your suffering, even when it doesn't feel spiritual. Sometimes the purpose of pain is to strip away the illusion that you're in control. Sometimes it's to dig deep enough to find the real you, the one that knows how to cling to God, not just when things are good, but when everything is falling apart. Pain has a way of silencing the noise, stripping back the pride, and bringing you face to face with God. Joseph was betrayed, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely imprisoned. And yet, he later looked at the very people who caused him pain and said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That's what it looks like when pain becomes purpose. Not because the pain wasn't real, but because God took what was meant to break you and used it to build something greater through you. Pain stretches your capacity. It enlarges your heart. It deepens your empathy. It humbles your spirit. You start to see others differently. You start to pray differently. You start to depend on God in ways you never had to before. And suddenly, what once felt like punishment begins to feel like preparation. Because pain has a way of growing you in places you didn't even know needed growth. There are some lessons you only learn in the valley, some trust that only develops in the fire, some intimacy with God that only emerges when you're too weak to keep going on your own. It's in those broken, bruised, dark places where God doesn't just deliver you, He reveals Himself to you. You learn He's not just a healer. He's your healer, not just a provider. He's your provider. The devil wants you to believe that pain is proof of God's absence. But the truth is, pain often becomes the place of God's greatest presence. Look at the cross. It was a place of agony, and yet through it came the greatest redemption the world has ever known. If God used the pain of Jesus to fulfill divine purpose, He can surely use yours to shape something holy. Sometimes your pain is the tool God uses to awaken a calling inside of you. You went through it not just for survival, but so you could help someone else come out of it too. Your story, your wounds, your scars, they're not signs of defeat. They're weapons of testimony. They speak. They carry authority. What hurt you once will help heal others if you hand it over to God. So don't be ashamed of your pain. Don't hide it. Don't disqualify yourself because of it. Because the very thing that felt like it was killing you might be the very thing that God is using to release your calling. There is fire in you because you've walked through fire. There is oil on you because you've been crushed. That crushing wasn't to destroy you, it was to extract purpose. Let's be honest. Some days you don't feel strong, you don't feel brave, you don't feel spiritual. You're not quoting Bible verses or shouting in victory. You're just trying to make it through the day. And deep down you wonder, how am I still standing? But here's the truth, nobody sees behind the scenes. It's not you holding yourself together. It's God. You think it's your discipline, your willpower, your strength, but it's not. It's grace. Undeserved, unexplained, unshakable. God is the one holding the seams of your soul intact, holding your mind steady when anxiety wants to rip through it, holding your spirit upright when grief tries to pull it down. You're not surviving on your strength, you're standing on His. Colossians 1:17 says, He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. That means God is the glue in your unraveling. He holds the atoms of the universe in place. So surely He can hold your heart together in the middle of your storm. When the world says you're falling apart, God is saying, I've got you. He's been behind the curtain the whole time, carrying what you thought you were carrying alone. You might feel weak, but feeling weak doesn't mean you're failing. In fact, it may mean you're finally becoming dependent on something stronger than yourself. God never asked you to carry the weight of the world. He asked you to cast your cares on Him. And maybe the reason you're exhausted is because you've been trying to manage what God asked you to surrender. You didn't keep your mind from breaking. He did. You didn't stop the depression from swallowing you whole. He reached down into the dark and held you up. You didn't pull yourself out of that pit by sheer strength. He pulled you out with mercy and wrapped you in peace. What you called endurance might have actually been divine intervention. There are days you didn't even pray, and still, God protected you. There were nights you cried yourself to sleep, and He still covered you in peace. You didn't feel His presence, but He was right there in the silence, reinforcing your soul, whispering, you're not alone, I'm here. You weren't forgotten. You were being carried. The enemy wants you to believe that if you're not strong, you're failing. But the truth is, God's strength shows up best in your surrender. Paul said, His power is made perfect in weakness. So maybe your breakdown wasn't a collapse, it was a turning point. A place where you finally let go of control and let God take over. A place where your strength ended and His began. So when you look back and wonder how you survived, don't credit yourself. Credit the one who never let go.